Welcome to All Can, No Can't, the podcast where we toss out excuses, face our fears, and reclaim control. I'm Jeff Luther, your guide to mastering the chaos and turning obstacles into opportunities. Whether you're an entrepreneur navigating the ups and the downs of building a successful business or someone ready to rewrite the rules of your life, this is your space to grow, to push boundaries, and to embrace doing the hard shit that leads to greatness. Together, we'll explore stories of resilience, strategies for overcoming, and the mindset shifts that let you build a life on your terms. I use my experience with a life-altering diagnosis to help you find the can in every can't. So buckle up, because it's time to stop living in can't and start thriving in all can. You choose. All right, welcome back to the All Can, No Can't podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Luther, and this is our place where we find the opportunity in the obstacle. I'm excited for the guest that we're about to talk to now. I haven't even spoken with her. Just exchanged emails, and that's a first for me, actually. So today's guest is Brooke King. She's Brooke's Joyrides. That's how I know she's going to be amazing. Like when you see her Instagram page, it's so fun. She's an adventure seeker and a cancer survivor. She's on a mission to find joy in every challenge. From hitchhiking on the world's deadliest terrain to cowboy mounted shooting in the Wild West, and now working on rowing across the Mediterranean, what's called rowing to remission. That's her journey. Brooke's story is all about resilience, bold bucket list quests, and living life to the fullest. Brooke, thank you so much. I am so excited to talk to you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here as well.
So we barely scratched the surface. I want to get more into what you're up to, but you mentioned that you're kind of new to podcasting, and you're like, it's kind of therapeutic. Like you're sharing the rawness of like diagnosis, and I can totally identify with that. So what's your experience been like?
Yeah, very new to the entire space of publicly sharing anything about myself.
Yeah.
And doing that after being diagnosed with cancer was like just throw all the everything at the wall that you can. And it's actually been quite comforting to share. And I think that's part of when you go through something traumatic, a lot of people have different ideas of how to cope with that. And I've actually found sharing with others that have gone through that experience has been its own version of therapy for me, because so many people are able to share how they've found joy and resilience in their own experiences. That's a huge part of where I've always kind of focused my life, and now it's never been more important, which is why even though I've had all of these like crazy adventures and experiences that I was doing as a hobby, I now wanted to pursue them full time, because I need to actively find joy in my life to make sure that I keep that spark alive. And sharing that journey with others and hearing what they've gone through, like even just the small things that I've shared about my experience with the medical field, and what being diagnosed, as I'm sure you've experienced, being a very healthy person, no one really wants to worry you or concern you, and you want to be empathetic to the doctors too, because they're like, hey, we have insurance to worry about, we have legalities to worry about, and they do want to do good by you. I truly believe that. But there's still so many hoops and jumps, and just sharing those things alone, I've had people from my past or strangers be like, hey, I've gone through this too, like, thank you for giving that perspective. And that in itself has been a big part of my healing and feeling that comfort, or even educating myself of learning some scary things that might be a part of my future that I need to strap in and prepare for, because I'm always someone who thinks like, let's learn every possible bad outcome that could be, so that I can mentally like strap in for that and say, okay, I can handle this. This is how I will handle it. So
yeah, that's interesting. I did the opposite. I was like, I'm only going to pick the things that I want to hear.
Really?
Yeah. I was pretty bad about that. So let me ask you this: when you first started to talk about it, did it feel a little bit selfish, like a little self-serving? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think my overall experience, my main reaction to having my cancer has been a bit of survivor's guilt, because the cancer I have is papillary thyroid cancer, and I have metastasized papillary thyroid cancer, so I'm on the more aggressive end of what people typically have been diagnosed with. So most people with my condition will have maybe like 2 to 5 tumors. I had 23, and I have a specific variant of it that makes it slightly more aggressive, but it's still quote unquote like the good cancer, which is really what doctors say to you, which is a very weird thing to grapple with, but it is true. It's something that's very easily targetable. The survivor rate's very high, and it's quite asymptomatic in terms of like how you're living your life. So I think I've had this survivor's guilt of like, I want to share. I've never been someone who wants to like sit and be sad with it, so I get anxious about like needing to dive into that side of things that I should naturally be feeling.
Right.
But then also saying like, oh, like there's so many people who have it worse than me. Like my radiation treatment, for instance, that I had to go through, most people who experience cancer will go through chemotherapy in order to have radiation. But for my treatment, I had to do, essentially you take this little radioactive pill, and one of my girlfriends actually, she made me this little like triangular little warning sign with my face on it to put on everything, because I was physically radioactive. I just took a pill. I didn't have to go through any of the really intense symptoms from chemo.
Yeah.
So it's this weird like survivor's guilt that I think you feel. I think that's more in line with what you were asking. But when you first share, it's just a weird thing to say, who am I going to share with? Because that's where a lot of my initial anxiety came from. I got diagnosed, and I was very intense about like, I felt like I was doing a sales job, like on the phone, honestly, every day for like 12 hours a day, trying to get a doctor to get my surgery as quickly as possible, because they estimate that it'll take about, from diagnosis to surgery, about like 6 to 8 months to get that going. And I had my surgery within 3 months of learning, or 3 weeks of learning about my cancer, because I was really pushing for it. And so it was very weird to decide who to share with, because you don't want to offend anyone either.
Yeah.
That's kind of a weird thing.
Yep.
So it's been an interesting journey, but overall, now that I've been in a healed space and processed what I've gone through, because it all happened so fast, it's been a lot more cathartic. But when I was in it and actively like sick, and also one of the things that's weird about a cancer diagnosis is, because I had such an advanced cancer and metastasized, because your thyroid's right here in the bottom of your neck, and it goes, my cancer spread all the way to basically like under my chin. And so it was very obvious that I had cancer, but technically the doctors aren't
obvious
say,
you were swollen.
Not really. Like I look back at photos of myself and I can see, and it's so crazy. Like there's actually this famous like HGTV show where there's this guy who hosts it, and a nurse who watches his show called into his producers to tell him she saw that he had thyroid cancer too. So it's so bizarre. Yeah, like sometimes I have these little lumps here that I could feel, but it's super asymptomatic. And I look back at my photos and I can see it in my pictures. And
now I'm feeling my neck.
I know, everyone has been since I told them. And after, because the initial diagnosis that I got to even investigate this was they felt a lump down here. But some people, they don't get worried when they feel lumps like underneath your neck.
When you say down here, you're right below your collarbone, right?
Right,
so that,
almost on top of your collarbone, actually. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's where, and you can even, my scar is like directly maybe an inch above. And this is actually a really good scar for people who had as extensive of surgery as me. Typically it'll go from the bottom of their neck all the way to the top, so it'd be this huge giant U shape.
Oh my gosh. I saw it. So that photo is on your Instagram page. I saw it. I was like, oh my gosh.
It was gnarly. And
yeah.
I couldn't believe they had to like stretch me open to get all the way up here. So my doctors did like an incredible job. I thought my scar was going to be much more intense than it was.
Right.
So
well, too bad you're so young. If this were like 25 years later, you could say, "Hey, why don't you go ahead and tighten up some of this stuff up here?" Why you got me
I
off?
said that. I was joking with my friends. It's like I don't come out of this real snatched. Like I want to get rid of that double chin. Like I'd love to be looking really good after this. And it's funny enough, I do feel like historically in my photos, because I probably had this cancer for about a year to 2 years without knowing. And I do feel like my neck looks slimmer. Like if you look back at my photos, you can see some of the lumps. And when I met my surgeon for the first time, she walked into the room and without even doing any tests on me, she's like, I can see them, like right on
wow.
you. Which is crazy because I'm like, I had no idea.
Yeah, I guess it's like you're watching your kids grow, right? And then, the grandparents that don't see them for, they're like, oh my God, he's so big. But you're watching this thing every day, so maybe you don't notice.
Yeah, 1,000%. And you don't feel it either. So I could feel it after. And that's when, even though I knew that I was healthy and all the doctors thought that I was healthy, when they felt the smaller node down on my thyroid, which was more alarming, I could feel the ones higher up on my neck and they weren't going away. And I didn't feel like I had like allergies or a cough, because I think that's another reason sometimes it goes unnoticed in younger people, because I'm only 29.
Just swollen gland, right? You say, oh, it's a swollen gland.
Exactly.
Oh,
so,
wow.
It's been a crazy journey, but I got it done and got it managed at a crazy rate. And honestly, the doctors going remote was such a beneficial experience for me, because I actually had to collaborate. That was one of the weird things about getting diagnosed. I don't know if you had a similar experience where when you go through all of these scans, each of the doctors you're working with are so specialized, so you consistently have to move to new specialists, and then you have this like disjointed medical history, even though each of these doctors individually are a huge part of your treatment plan.
Yeah.
So I actually had my endocrinologist join me on a Zoom call with my surgeon, because my endocrinologist is primarily responsible for all of my care now that I don't have a thyroid. So anything post-surgery, post-treatment, I have to have an endocrinologist for the rest of my life to make sure that I'm on top of my thyroid health, because I'm reliant on thyroid hormone now forever to be healthy, because not having your thyroid really messes up like your body's regulation.
Everything.
So, but yeah, I got him on a Zoom call, and he was like, this is super uncommon. You have to be like the VIP, like pay for like a wing of a hospital to get doctors in the same room together. But if you work the system, like you can get whatever you need done, and everyone does remote Zoom calls now. And part of my diagnosis was just reviewing scans. So none of my doctors really needed to conduct a lot of the actual scans or surveys themselves. It was just someone else did it, and then they sat with me and reviewed the results. So I was able to get them all in a Zoom call together. It was like very, very business. They were like, who is this patient?
Yeah.
What is she doing?
Wow, that's awesome. So you took a different tack. A lot of people take the tack of, kind of digging in and moving forward and not, and to some degree kind of ignoring the diagnosis, like not really believing that's what's happening to them.
1,000%. I think I did a little bit in the beginning, because from my gynecologist, which crazy enough, they are the doctors that find most of this, because this is a more common cancer for women than for men. It's like, I think it's like 3 times more likely for a woman to have this than a man. Okay. And so a gynecologist will typically feel your neck at your regular checkup appointment.
Okay.
But she couldn't actually write the prescription for the ultrasound I needed. And I just didn't think, these are just not medical things that I knew about. So when I first got even warned of like, hey, there's something you might want to check out, she couldn't write a prescription for me. She couldn't conduct the ultrasound, which was bizarre, because I'm like, aren't you guys the ultrasound people?
Right, yeah, like that's, your
like,
job
exactly
revolves
like
around that.
But it's so specialized, and it makes sense, because they're not looking for the same thing. You have to understand what your nodes look like in an ultrasound versus obviously like a pregnant woman or any sort of like belly situation. But from there, it did take me 6 weeks to actually even get an appointment to know there was a bigger problem. And that's when I kind of went down that slightly denial state of being a bit of a feeling, honestly, like a hypochondriac of like, I'm healthy. Like, why am I like concerned and freaked out about this? And why is it was so hard to even get the appointments that I needed that I could have easily just ignored it.
Yeah.
But I'm very fortunate. My family and I, like my dad in particular, he, anytime anything's a problem, he'll hound me and he'll call me and be like, did you get this checked out? Did you handle it? Did you look at it? So I have like a good group of people around me who make me feel comfortable.
Right. Which is annoying until it's not, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in that 6-week time frame, like, was it a high or a low? Like, did you get lost? Did you spiral down? Like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so bad. Or were you like, it's going to be fine? Or do you even remember?
I was honestly reacting normal. I remember coming out of the appointment from my gynecologist being pretty freaked out of being like, oh, like that's so weird. And calling people and they're like, you're being dramatic, like relax.
Yeah.
And I kind of internalized that, being like, okay, you're right, I need to relax about it. But I was feeling my neck and feeling quite self-conscious about it and just feeling everything after that. And I'll never forget this. I went to visit one of my really close friends, and I think in the back of my mind, I was more freaked out about it than I let myself admit or realize. And so I just casually was telling him about all of the red tape I was going through to even get this ultrasound appointment, and being like, oh, I have to go home after I'm done with our trip and get this done, and I'm struggling with it. And I'll never forget, he looked me in the eyes and he's like, you know what, like, it could be cancer. Like, I think there was something he felt from me, of like the way I was putting off describing this situation and downplaying it. That he was like,
yeah.
It was crazy. Him and I talk about it all the time about like, I can't even believe, like, he was the first person who was like, honestly, like, I wouldn't be surprised. He told me the story of another friend of ours, like our age, who had been complaining about being itchy for like a whole year, and all the doctors were not taking him seriously, and it turned out to be, I think, a version of leukemia or something.
Oh my gosh.
So that has been a big part of the sharing too, is just hearing how many other people, I think that's helpful, is hearing other people say like something weird was going on, or you can almost, I felt it in my gut. I don't know what it was, but I could just feel, I'm like, I know something's wrong and I really didn't want to think so, and no one wants to be that person. And that was a part of like, when you asked me that question, are you feel guilty or nervous about sharing? I found out that I had cancer most likely from the ultrasound, but it's not official until they pull out cells from your body and they conduct a biopsy.
Right.
Which that process takes a really long time to get.
How long did that take?
I was super fortunate that process took me only from getting my ultrasound about 3 weeks. But it's crazy. I've never even met this guy, the guy who read my ultrasound results. He's a radiologist, where when they do the scan on your neck, he just gets sent those images and writes up a report. He actively called my doctors, and he was in the hospital system that I am in now, which I have my surgeons through. So I kind of like faked it, and I was like, I already have a doctor, even though I've never met that guy. I have a doctor here, like, just get me on a Zoom call, because that's where they really start the red tape journey of saying like, okay, you have this, it's probably going to take 3 months for you to get a biopsy, because you have to do an interview with the surgeon first. Once you have that interview, then they'll schedule the biopsy, and those take like each a month or 2 to get. So that's really where a lot of that work on my end came in, was just actively being on the phone all the time, kind of like hustling, discussing with the appointment schedulers what I could get done.
And it's so hard because it's so much work.
It is. I truly, that's one of the reasons that I feel kind of that level of I do have the good cancer of truly believing that, because I don't understand truly how people are actively sick, because I have not really had any symptoms except for after my surgery. Like, my surgery gave me some pretty gnarly symptoms.
Yeah.
But beforehand, like, I didn't feel ill in any way. And it was a full-time job to get the medical care. I had to start taking medical leave from when I found out that there were problems, and then being on the phone 24/7, like getting my appointment set up. So that was really the only like grieving period I had, was between seeing my ultrasound results, hearing like, you have cancer, because the thing that really cued me in was seeing the word metastatic, because I think everyone, when they hear cancer, like they think, okay, that's terrible, but metastatic is like the really scary word of it's gone other places and it's spread. And that was on the report, and I even read it.
And for clarity, that's like metastasized, right? So that means Yeah,
metastasized basically means that you have cancer, and cancer is cells that have malformed in some part of your body. So if you have thyroid cancer like me, your thyroid cancer or your thyroid cells have gone bad, but metastatic means that now the cancer cells, the bad cells, have gone outside of your thyroid into other parts of your body.
Yeah.
And that's what I read on my report. And that's when I started to like sit down and really realize it was happening.
Right. Yeah, that whole unknown. So did it, like that word is so, I won't say defining, but definitive, I think. It's such a scary word. Yeah, it's just it's this really scary word. Has that changed? Like, you were an adventure seeker already, right? But has that changed how you approach, like, going forward? You're like, okay, well, now my window's closing. Did you take that approach? Do you ever feel that way?
I think at first I was nervous that it would take that, like, it almost like stole my like youthful energy from me if I had this, like, when you're young, and especially when like you do the types of adventures that I've been on, of like, I really truly think that I'm like invincible. If you've seen some of the stuff that I've done, like when I did that, I hitchhiked in the middle of the Sahara desert to ride the world's deadliest train, like, you think like there's just this sense of like I can conquer the world that I feel deeply in my heart. And I think when it first happened, I kind of felt like it stole that from me in a way, and I was like, I need to work extremely hard not to take that, because your life flashes before your eyes.
Hey, that's work. I can empathize with you there. That is work.
Yeah. But I think now that I've had time, because that was my immediate like gut, like angry reaction. I think I've had sadness, but I've had a lot of like random anger, I think, most.
Are you feeling stuck? Overwhelmed? It's like you're fighting against something that you can't even see or name. I've been there, literally. I survived sudden cardiac death, and I rebuilt everything. I've mastered the art of controlling the chaos. Now, I coach a small group of high performers that are willing to do the work to do the same thing. No fluff, no excuses, we just get results. If you're ready to take back control, apply now at jeffluther.com. This is all can, no can. Yeah.
Just like why and how.
Yep.
Because that's another part of why I think cancer is such a weird thing, and I think maybe you probably experienced this too, is like, there's no explanation. They don't have like a definitive study that says this is where you got it from.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what drives people a little crazy, is you're constantly asking yourself why and needing to separate yourself from that, of just saying it is what it is.
Yep.
How can I grow from here?
Yeah.
And now that I've had time to heal and grow and know what the next steps of my cancer look like, because I still technically have cancer, and I still will have cancer for at least 2 more years. Like, I won't know that I'm cancer free for a long time for a variety of reasons. But I think it's given me a new look at, like, just the way I look at my relationships, that I have with my family, my friends, my romantic partners, the way that I even look at like aging, it's almost added this level of like appreciation.
Yeah.
That I never ever would have had. Like I think everyone, but specifically ladies, like hitting their decade birthdays, they're like, oh my god, like their first 30, like I'm turning 30 this year, and I don't think I felt great about that before my cancer, and now I'm like genuinely excited to celebrate just being here.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Alive. So yeah, I think that at first, yes, but now, ultimately, I think the lens that it's given me to see the world, I see as this, like, blessing and additional maturity that I have that not a lot of people get a chance to feel.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and that's can be part of the guilt sometimes. And then it's also like for me, what about this? This is another question. When you tell people that you have cancer, has anyone said, "Oh wow, but you look so healthy"? Do you ever get that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think a lot of people more so get like sad because I think they have that reaction internally. I think
Same as me. Like when I say, "Oh my gosh, that word sounds so bad." So
I think it's more like them seeing that I'm young.
Yeah.
That like hurts their soul.
Yeah.
But most people are, I mean, they're so sweet about it when I share, and then they'll just share their own experiences. Because when you tell someone you have cancer, their immediate reaction is to tell you all the other people that they know that are sick or that they've been affected, and it does create this sense of like community around you. Of like you had no idea how many people are affected by this.
Yeah.
But I haven't had too much. It's only like the young part that I can feel a reaction from people. So it's interesting to tell people my age versus telling people older than me and who've gone through life, because they definitely have different reactions.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, like you can immediately go to the front of the line at the grocery store, right? Anything.
Actually, there is a bit of, I will, like you said, joking, like that's kind of a joke, but kind of serious for me, because for a minute, like I had the really big scar across my neck, and then also I had a complication from my surgery where I had to have, most people who have my surgery have tubes left in them to basically collect any like surgical fluid or check to see if there's any problems. So they want to see what's kind of happening inside of you. So you have these big tubes hanging out of you with a bunch of fluid in them. It's pretty gross.
Yeah.
But I had those for about a month and a half, which is very
oh my gosh,
for this surgery. So I actually did get that kind of like, I kind of did like that, like the sick girl treatment of like, hi, can you help me? Like it was nice. And I think that adjustment period when I got them out, when I stopped looking sick, especially if I cover my neck, like it's, even now my scar looks so good. And I'm only like 5 months post-op.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Like when you showed me, it's like, wait a second, that's not the same picture I saw.
No, it healed so beautifully. Like my doctors are so amazing. They actually just happen to, the endocrinology department shares a floor in an office space with the plastic surgeons in my hospital. So they like share notes and told them like all the best ways to make it. So they actually purposefully try and make my scar look like a wrinkle, like crestline in my neck. So a year from now, it's really like a little invisible condition that I have, which is both comforting and then also on days you're having a bad day, like frustrating. There was actually one day I had in the hospital, I would jokingly tell this story to my friends, where I was just so angry about my situation. And I just wanted to be angry that day. Yeah. And I was starting to, like, I'd wear like maybe a shirt that covered my neck, or like I look a lot healthier than the patients around me in the hospital. Yeah. Like there's some pretty people who've really been through it in the cancer wing. Mm-hmm. And I would just remember walking into the hospital for an appointment I had, just so angry I still had these tubes, and just the world was like, you are going to be positive and feel good about you today. Because like every possible thing that could have happened that I was like, I can't feel bad, did. Like I got into the hospital and there was like this sweet young girl who, like a little 3-year-old with her family, who had like an eye patch on, like clearly going through some sort of issue, cancer related with her eye. There was another young girl who there's a bell that I didn't even know existed, rung the like Remission bell.
Yeah, their last treatment, right?
I got into the elevator and some like sweet elderly man was like, "I hope you're having a nice day." I'm like, the world just said you can't be angry today.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. All right, so you got to tell me about this train. Tell me about the train. Why is it the world's most deadliest train?
So it's in Mauritania. It's a small country underneath Morocco, and it's considered the world's deadliest train because it is the world's longest train.
Okay.
And it's in one of the most remote locations in the world. So it's in truly the middle of nowhere in the Sahara Desert. Like, there's nothing from where the train starts to where the train ends. Everything in between is just like hundreds of miles of the desert. And so because it's the longest, it's also the heaviest, so it has the most carts, and it transports iron ore, which is the main export of Mauritania to the rest of the world. And so you basically like find your way to the beginning of the train, which was a crazy journey in itself. It took me 3 whole days just to get to the town that the train starts in. And you're driving on just the desert sand. Like it was not, there were no roads. Like there were maybe like a couple roads, but I couldn't believe this guy knew where he was going. Like we weren't anywhere near the tracks. You couldn't see the train. Like we were just driving through sand for 3 straight days. And then you make it to the beginning of the train, and the reason it became popular is because a couple people saw that the locals of Mauritania, instead of there's like a little commuter car, they'll jump on top of the already filled cargo carts that just have a bunch of iron ore sitting on them, and they'll ride it for free to the main like port town, because there's really only 2 big cities in the entire country. And so I was like, I'm not sure what it is that compelled me. I think it's part of what drives me now to do this event in the Mediterranean, where I feel like it's important to do things that are like hard and that scare you.
Yeah.
And I do feel like having gone through those experiences helped me cope with what I just went through, because I know that there's like tough shit that I can handle.
Right.
And so it was very exhilarating, very exciting. It was amazing to see a different part of the world, and see how those people live, and honestly feel fortunate for what I've grown up around. And then also just badass. Like it was, you're basically, it's like extreme camping is the way I'd call it. Because when I got to the beginning of the train, I had a guide. I went by myself, and my parents were not happy about it.
Really? I wonder why. I wonder what they were apprehensive about.
They are usually, they're truly like very supportive. Like the row that I'm doing across the Mediterranean, they're like all for that because it's supported and there's like a clear guideline of what if something hits the fan. Like there's precautions.
Right.
But also Mauritania is a very traditional country, and so it's very Muslim, and there's not a lot of like women who are actively like moving in spaces alone.
Okay.
They always have to wear like the hijab and stuff. So also blonde women, like they're never seeing women like my size, my height, or like my look. So I immediately stand out.
Right.
So there's a bit of a precaution to take there, but it ended up being awesome. I got a guide. He took me all the way to the beginning of the train, and we had a driver take us there. But the driver like left when he dropped us off at the beginning of the train. And the only time I really got like nervous on the trip was when I could see that my guide was getting anxious and we no longer had like a car there with us, but we got dropped off at the beginning of the train. And the weird thing about it is it's like, it's not meant to be a commuter train. Like it's meant to transport all of this iron ore.
Right. Yeah.
And so he actually, we got dropped off, and it's never 100% that the location is like, here's this one stop. This is the beginning of the train. Like there's 2 possible locations that it can start. And so we got dropped off at like kind of like the second spot that it could start at. And my guide's like looking at me, and the train pulled away from us because they actually have to attach all of the cars that are filled with iron ore to the actual like pulling car, the car that brings
engine.
everybody. Yeah, exactly. And my guide's starting to get really anxious. He's like, we should get inside of this like train cart that all the people actually commute in instead of getting on top of them, because the iron ore wasn't there, only that like beginning car was there.
Okay.
And I was like, we came to like be on top of it, do this adventure. Like, he was really worried about my safety when we got in that other car. Like, the entire time we were on the trip, he's like, don't worry about wearing like your job, like have your camera gear out, like take all this footage. And then when we got to the train, everything like went in. He was like, cover yourself, like put all your stuff away. Like, he was super on edge. And I was like, what's going on? So I'm like, yeah, I think it'll be safer and better if we just like sit out here and wait for it. But then the car left. And he was freaking out. He's like genuinely thought we weren't going to get picked up. But just by happenstance, while we were waiting there, a guy who was like working in the train yard was curious what I was doing there and came and chatted with me and was like excited to meet an American, because not a lot of Americans obviously are there.
Go ride this train.
And he happened to be the train conductor. So he came back, like it literally was like 5 hours later, and it was probably 3 a.m. at this point. It was pitch black because we're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he pulls up and he's like, don't you worry, like I didn't forget about you, like we're stopping here. So they just stopped only for me and my guide.
Oh wow.
It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. It was so awesome.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about your trip across the Mediterranean. Isn't that it, right? You're rowing across the Mediterranean.
Yes. So it is a facet of the sport ocean rowing.
Okay.
And typically from ocean rowing, which is originally where I found out about this opportunity in the Mediterranean, it's kind of like those boats that you would see on a cruise ship.
Okay.
Those safety vessels.
Yeah.
Where they're just meant to withstand a lot.
Right.
And they take those and they've converted it into a completely self-sufficient boat where there's rowers, so you can physically row, but then there's like solar panels, there's water reclamation systems. So the sport of ocean rowing started where a lot of people were actually traversing from Europe to America. And it's like a 40-day long row. And I was like, that is badass. I don't know if I can handle 40 days, but I can handle 3. So I tried to find all these smaller ones. And I had happened to be like aware of this for the past 3 years. It's been on my bucket list, as is the trip in Africa and riding that train. So I've been in contact with the leader of this specific race that they do called the Noman campaign, where they race from Barcelona to Ibiza.
Okay.
And it takes typically around 3 days or so, depending on the weather. If the weather's worse or there's a heavy wind, it might take 4 days. So they kind of plan it that way. But I was like, this is amazing. Like, it's like a chance for me to get a taste of that crazy sport without it being a whole 40-day journey. Like, how do I get in this? And then I've been speaking to this guy on and off, like, every couple months for 3 years, and they just never had a spot for me. And the event itself has always been put on specifically for HPV-related cancers. It's a foundation for that. That's like the origins of this race. And I had contacted him like after I got my diagnosis, and I was like, hey, like I am now a cancer survivor. Like this has become a lot more meaningful to me. Like it was already exciting, and now it like just had this gravitas for me of wow, like it'd be so nice to meet other people who are supporting what I've gone through.
Right.
And it was so serendipitous. They had a slot for me. It's a team of like 3 other women that they've matched me up with. One of which I found out is actually a former like Olympian. She had rowed for Great Britain on their
Oh my gosh,
Olympics.
you hit the lottery.
I know, I'm stoked. I was nervous.
Yeah.
It was funny. I keep telling people, I'm like, if I do well, I will have a friend who is an Olympian. Maybe so I have to perform well. I was like, I was a bit nervous about that. She seems super, super sweet, but yeah, so now I was able to get on this row, and what I'm doing is pledging what that initial request is to be a participant, which is 10,000 pounds to go back to HPV related funds for those types of cancers. And then because of what I've gone through, I have created a separate pledge for my own cancer, for thyroid cancer.
Okay.
So I'm super stoked about it. I'm like using it as a way to get healthy now too, because learning to trust my body again has been a journey. So getting in the gym and like
you're using it as a way to get fit. You're healthy. You're getting fit.
Exactly.
Right?
But truly, like starting from zero and healing, like the surgery really like atrophied my body. Like it took a lot out of me. So it's been a really nice like goal line, because it also makes it feel like I'm conquering the cancer instead of just like getting through it. Which is really exciting.
That's
and, like,
huge.
It's kept me moving forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. How do folks support you? Are you doing any like a GoFundMe or anything like that for the pledge?
I am. So I'm doing a GoFundMe for Rowing to Remission, which you can find on any of my socials on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, which is Brooke's Joyrides. So anyone that is interested in contributing, all of the funds pretty much go to resources and education for people who have had these cancers. Whether it's for the thyroid cancer that I've created that separate pledge, or for what the No Man campaign focuses on. Because that's really the biggest thing I've experienced as a cancer patient, is that it's like going back to school. There's just like, and I'm sure you've had that experience as well, is like there's just so much like research and education you have to do to ensure that you're getting the care that you need or understand what you're going through.
Right.
And be actively involved in your treatments. And that's really what a lot of the foundations are about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You're impressive, Brooke. You've been fantastic to talk to.
Thank you. It's been lovely chatting with you too.
Yeah, so tell us your Instagram again.
Yes.
Where can people find you? Say it again.
It's called Brooke's Joyrides, Brooke with an E, Brooke's Joyrides, and that's on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And I'm going to be sharing both my journey with Rowing to Remission, hopefully raising the funds that I can to give back to the people that helped me go through my cancer and other folks that have cancer, but also sharing a lot of the other wacky journeys that I have done, like the train ride. And like one of the videos I'm really excited to share is just taking a lot of these hobbies and saying like, hey, this is like, I love it. Like, why not now? I went through this experience, if not to enjoy my life. And one of the things I'm excited to share that's coming up is actually this, I went to Turkey and I tracked down the world's only floating grocery store. Like, it's super random.
And you bought like a soda or something, right? Like this one.
I bought like, it was crazy. It was like a full-blown grocery store. It had like, it wasn't just food. It was like shoes and like pool noodles. And so I bought like shoes and pool noodles and a bunch of like snacks for me and my friend who were road tripping through the countryside of Turkey.
Fun.
So it's a bunch of stuff like that. And I'm excited to just like, just experience this new journey and share that with people. So hopefully you're interested in hearing as well.
Yeah, I will encourage everybody, if you're listening to this, go check it out. And I'll say this, Brooke, that in all your posts on your Instagram page, you're smiling in all of them, and people need that. So if nothing comes of this other than someone saying, oh, well, shit, if she can do it, I can too, then your life is a huge success. So that's cool.
What you're all about, right? The all can, no can.
That's right.
Fully believe that as well.
That's it, man.
You just got to smile through it. So I try my best to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, because what's the alternative? You know, you get mired down in the camp. And that's no fun.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
All right, Brooke. Thank you so much. This has been great, and I can't wait to keep up with your journeys. You're fun.
Thank you. Yes. You as well. I'm excited to hear more from your guests too. It's been lovely hearing some of the guests that you've had as well. So
awesome.
I really appreciate you having me on.
You got it. All right, folks. This has been the All Can, No Can't podcast, where we're finding the opportunity in those obstacles. And Brooke, you have been like the poster child for that. So thanks for sharing with us. And until next time, we'll see you guys. Thanks for listening to All Can, No Can't. If today's episode resonated with you, remember it's not about the chaos you face. It's about how you choose to take back control. It's about finding that one small can in the can't you're given and grinding it down. Find your angle, carve your place out in the world, and get the fucking win. Do that by finding what you can do and not listening to what you can't. You choose. Be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your support helps me reach more people that are ready to embrace the all-can mindset. And it lets them know there's someone that's willing to walk with them no matter how dark the path gets. You can find me on Insta at JDLuther 2.0 and allcan_no-can't. This is where I share more tips, stories, inspiration to help fuel your journey. And until next time, keep pushing boundaries, breaking limits, proving to yourself that anything is possible, even when you're told it isn't. Remember, life's not about can't. It's all can. Go prove them wrong.